with me here on Status Coup News. My name is Kim Brown. We've got a wonderful program in store for you today. Much love going out to Louis DeAngelis with outstanding reporting about East Palestine, continued outstanding reporting from Jordan Cheriton and the entire Status Coup community regarding these environmental disasters. And let me pick up the baton and keep it moving because we are facing a potential environmental disaster that is tied into racial justice, that is tied into free speech, that is tied into the right to protest. The Stop Cop City movement happening in Atlanta right now, everybody, in my opinion, is going to be one of the pivotal fights of our time. And I'm telling you, it is not only our duty to be aware about what's happening in Cop City with the Stop Cop City movement and the Defend the Atlanta Forest movement, but we need to get involved and try to support our comrades on the ground there as much as we possibly can because they are truly under a fascist attack. There's a lot of layers and moving parts to the story, so I'd like to bring in my guest. Joining me today from Atlanta is Marlon Kautz. Marlon is an organizer with the Atlanta Solidarity Fund, which helps to provide bail support and legal fund support for protesters who have been targeted by the state, arrested, and are facing charges. Marlon, thank you so much for making time to join us today on Status Coup.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
So one of the first aspects about the fight happening against Stop Cop City has to do with the location itself. I believe it's the Walani Forest, and 90 acres has been selected for ultimate destruction, basically. There is no other way to say it, that they are going to tear down 90 acres of an old growth forest in order to build a multi-million-dollar police safety academy, a campus, basically where police, local, state, and federal, will come to train about how to deploy terrible things against the population. Colin, do me a favor, pop up that tweet for me if you could. This tweet was posted by my comrade, Kamal Franklin from the Community Movement Builders, one of the many organizations that have been not only doing political actions, but political educations to the Atlanta residents about what's happening in Cop City. And the image is what I really want you to focus on, because the top image is an aerial view of the Walani Forest. And the bottom image is where the clearing of the forest has already begun. It's already begun. And let me not fail to mention, of course, that the other aspect about this fight against Cop City also involves the political assassination of a protester back in January by the name of Tortuguita, who was shot many dozens of times while unarmed and not presenting any danger to police. And yet the police have not done anything about members of their ranks actually murdering somebody. But here's where the Stop Cop City fight is right now. The city of Atlanta is debating, rather the Atlanta City Council is now mulling over whether or not to approve $33 million in taxpayer funds to go to the construction of Stop Cop City. And on Monday in Atlanta, over 300 people signed up to give their comments on this issue. Every single one of them spoke unanimously in opposition to the construction of Stop Cop City. And the residents there are so amazingly informed. I want us to listen to some of their comments. And again, it ranges from people being opposed because of the destruction of the forest, which, as we know, we're in the middle of a climate catastrophe. You kind of need trees as the planet continues to heat up. We need trees and old plants to absorb sunlight and rainwater and the like. They also bring up the fact pertaining to the further militarization of the Atlanta police weaponized against the people of Atlanta. And lastly, the last speaker we're going to hear from speaks directly to the assassination of Manuel Tortuguita Tehran. So, Colin, let's take a look at the comments made this Monday at the Atlanta City Hall.
Not only that, but the more trees you have in a community, the less crime you have. And due to years of racist redlining within the city and throughout the country, the neighborhoods with the most crime have the least amount of trees. This is all basic stuff here, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not really saying anything radical, and hopefully I'm not sounding like a domestic terrorist. But I know why we're really here. Many of you in the city council are afraid. These Republicans ain't playing these days. They will storm a Capitol, try to murder a vice president, steal elections, and put teachers in jail for teaching about Black and queer studies. Hell, I'll be afraid too. And essentially what the Republicans have told Atlanta leadership is that it's plato or plomo, as Pablo Escobar said. It's lead or money. Essentially, they want to create Buckhead City in exchange for creating Cop City. And I urge you all to vote no for Cop City, because the damage that it will do is not worth the cost.
Thank you. Next is Will DiCarlo. Next is Sylvie Cole.
There was a defendant that was arrested right here in this city of Atlanta because they happened to be in the proximity of a protest and be in possession of Black clothes, which apparently was enough for them to be indicted for arson. Now, the other evidence that they gave were that this person was reimbursed for supplies at a welcome table for a week of action. So buying paint supplies, staplers, and I guess anything else that one might use can make you more, is essentially enough for an indictment. This is a sham of justice, and we're all tolerating it. And now if that's all it takes, some of us might go to jail for this, but some of y'all might go to hell for this.
7 gunshot wounds. 57 gunshot wounds in the body of Manuel Terán, requiring an autopsy report of more than 30 pages. Have you read it? I have. It made me sick, it made me weep. I think every person in this city should be required to read that report to see firsthand what was done to a fellow human being by our government. You own that event, you know. Without your continued obstinate support of Cop City, it would not have happened. Does this not trouble your spirits? If I were you, it would trouble my spirit until my dying day. Some of you are young. You've got a long time to be haunted by your complicity in that death.
Incredible testimony there coming from members of the Atlanta community voicing their opposition to the Atlanta City Hall, the Atlanta City Council regarding the construction of Cop City. And Marlon, after Tortuguita's assassination in January, more protests and direct actions were mobilized, and then the state came cracking down even harder on the opposition, charging many people with domestic terrorism. Can you give us an update about the status of those that have been charged with domestic terrorism? I know some have been released, but is everybody out as of right now?
No, there are still protesters sitting in jail facing these bogus domestic terrorism charges who have been denied bail. None of them have been convicted. None of them have had any meaningful evidence presented against them, and yet they sit in jail, with no recourse to actual justice. And we understand this as the deliberate strategy that the prosecution, the state, local prosecutors are pursuing. They know that they don't have the actual legal justification and authority to jail activists, to make charges stick, these preposterous domestic terrorism charges. But they're trying this maneuver to just get people locked up, held in jail for as long as they can to intimidate and discourage the movement. And that's been continuing. Most recently, we've seen activists who are associated, who've been protesting against Cop City, arrested for simply handing out flyers that were calling attention to the murder of Manuel Terán.
No, and I definitely want us to get to that, and maybe we should just go ahead and get to that. Colin, can you pop up that article for me? I think it was from reason.com, because earlier this month, three activists were out in Bartow County, Georgia, near Cartersville, flyering a neighborhood. And I know that these activists were intentional with the way that they were distributing these flyers. They never got out of their vehicle. They were putting them on mailboxes. They were not leaving them on people's doors. They were not approaching people on the street and handing out these flyers. The flyers reportedly contained information regarding one of the officers who was on the scene when Manuel Tortuguita Terán was assassinated in the Walani Forest back in January. And these three activists summarily were charged, help me, Marlon, here, with misdemeanor in felony intimidation of a police officer, and I believe misdemeanor stalking, which, guys, that's fucking preposterous. Pardon my language. Can you give us an update about the status of these three folks who initially, some of them were denied a bond?
They were all denied bond initially, purely on the basis of the severity of the charges and due to the intervention of state prosecutors. Again, the Attorney General, acting under the direction of Governor Kemp, is taking a very active interest in any of these cases and pushing for aggressive charges. Initially, the charges they were arrested on were only misdemeanor, but once the state authorities got involved, they pushed, very hard for felony charges to be brought, because of course felony charges make it much easier to hold people without bond. One of those activists is still in jail, has still been denied bond, and the justification being given for holding this person is simply that they have seemed to be involved in protests against Cop City for a long time. So association with political activity is being used as the justification for keeping people in jail. Not to mention, of course, the fact that the whole reason that these people were arrested in the first place was for the most classic form of First Amendment activity you can imagine, right? Passing out flyers in public about a political issue to call attention to the wrongdoing of a government official, right? If this is the kind of thing that's being punished with, pre-trial jail time, we're in trouble, right? Like, the democratic process in Georgia is in big trouble if this is the kind of thing that can be done to activists.
Democratic process is in big trouble across the country, because if this is allowed to fly in Georgia, why wouldn't it be allowed to fly other places? And that's the other issue pertaining to this, because these activists in Bartow County were criminally charged with protected First Amendment speech. However, Tortuguita's murderers have not even lost a day of work. They remain on paid vacation for shooting someone 57 times. And I want to credit the Atlanta Community Free Press, a local independent news outlet based in Atlanta, who broke that story about the number of times that Tortuguita was actually shot after they obtained the coroner's report from the medical examiner's office. To my knowledge, Marlon, no other mainstream outlet, media outlet in Atlanta even bothered. But for these tiny righteous outlets trying to get out information regarding how the state is targeting people, especially for murder, regarding political speech and actions, is something that I find quite alarming. In spite of the bogus media coverage, 300 plus people showed up at City Hall to voice their opposition. What have you noticed about the change in the amount of people who have been informed, politically educated about what Cop City is, what it's going to mean for the community? I saw this blonde lady out there, and she said it wasn't until Tortuguita was killed that I even took up an interest in this issue. How has the city been better informed over these past several months and since this movement has really gained momentum?
Well, the pattern that we've seen in terms of repression is that that city police, county police, state authorities, they seem to have one strategy for advancing their position, right? Like, they would like to see Cop City built. They want to advocate for that. And the only real meaningful lever that they have is physical force and abuse of the justice system, throwing people in jail, attacking people and throwing them in jail. And the Atlanta Solidarity Fund has seen many movements come and go over, the time that we've done our work. And many times that type of repression is enough to discourage activists. You beat some people up, you throw some people in jail for no reason, and everybody else decides it's not worth it, we're going home. That has not been happening in this movement. In fact, the opposite has been happening. That the more brazen and aggressive the authorities become in their repression of activists, the more attention the issue gains, both in the city and nationally and internationally. And we're seeing that now with more and more people coming out, participating in the political process, insisting on protesting, making their voice heard, getting involved with this issue. And in response, the authorities, rather than negotiating, rather than like taking a political or diplomatic approach, seem to be doubling down on their repression, arresting and attacking people for more and more ludicrous things, and holding this line that the people who oppose Cop City are terrorists. They're part of a criminal organization. They're conspiring to illegally, obstruct our process. When in fact, as we can see from this town hall meeting, you're dealing with the Atlanta public at large, a
Yes.
huge cross section of the entire public, from church leaders to students to abolitionist activists to Black community leaders. Many segments of the population are involved in opposing this project. Will they all be met with this same kind of violence and repression? Is this where the authorities are going, to just criminalize everybody who stands in their way? That's what it looks like.
And they're getting some assistance. Hey, if you're watching us right now, do us a favor, hit that like button, follow and subscribe to Status Coup News. We appreciate everyone that's checking us out now live in the chat. And, Marlon, to your point, there was an action held on the campus of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Maybe this was a couple of weeks ago, maybe 3-ish weeks ago, in support of a student there, a law student, who was part of the Stop Cop City actions. And I believe they were also charged. You may be familiar with whom I'm speaking of. But as a result, they were barred from attending classes at the University of North Carolina, whole ass different state, right? And these this targeting of specific people associated with this movement, even in other institutions and their institutions of learning, in their jobs, in the communities, that may not look too favorably upon this political speech. I mean, this is even going beyond simply charging people and jailing them. This isn't with the intention of trying to literally ruin people's lives for standing in opposition to the construction of this facility.
Absolutely. We have to understand that when we talk about repression, it's the political use of the powers that are afforded to the police and prosecutors, right? Like, ostensibly, police and prosecutors' job is to enforce the law, to make sure that people who've committed crimes are punished. But that's not what's happening with, it's not what police and prosecutors are doing here. They're exploiting the powers that society has entrusted to them in order to destroy a movement, in order to prevent people from accomplishing their political goals. And they're doing that in creative, illegal, unconstitutional ways. Nothing is off limits for them, right? If they can call up somebody's school and get them kicked out of school, they will do that. If they can call up somebody's bank and get the bank to close their account, they will do that. If they can threaten people who aren't facing charges with the prospect of facing charges, if they endorse the movement or if they protest Cop City, they will do that. It's terrifying. But I think, the example of the law student is an important one, because when that law student faced repression through their university, the entire campus, students, professors, staff members, they all came out and they protested on behalf of that person. They said, we won't accept this on our campus. We demand that you reconsider this ban. And this is what's needed, right? The court system is not going to bring justice to the people who are being targeted for repression right now. All of society is responsible for standing up and saying, we reject this. These people are not terrorists. They are participating in the democratic process as intended. We support them, we stand by them, and we will not allow this to continue. And until the public is able to do that in a strong way, this kind of repression will continue, and it will target more and more people, not even just in this Stop Cop City movement, but in any movement, in any political campaign which threatens the powerful. So it's important that people take this seriously wherever you are, no matter your relation to this particular issue.
So important. And the other aspect about this that obviously cannot be overlooked or ignored is the attack on the actual forest. This is an old growth forest in, I believe, southwest Atlanta. It borders a predominantly brown and black area. And we know as climate change continues to accelerate, we're seeing more devastating storms, dropping more and more amounts of water, more powerful thunderstorms, tornadoes, etc. There's even the occasional hurricane that can blow through Georgia. I mean, you need trees to soak up some of this excess that is going to continue to grow and to accumulate. And yet the ease in which the Atlanta Police Foundation, the Atlanta City Council, all of the powers that be that are involved, all of the many corporations that are funders of this project are completely disregarding not only the health of the forest, but the role that the forest plays to those mostly marginalized residents there in Southwest Atlanta. The Atlanta Forest Defenders have been doing tremendous work, amazing work, doing their best to prevent the big machinery from getting into the forest to begin clearing, but that has already begun. So, what have you seen or heard regarding the pace and the speed at which the developers are really trying to make sure that this project gets to a point that maybe even with the public opposition, they'll be like, "Oh, well, too bad. We've already cleared 50 acres, so we might as well keep going." What have you seen and heard regarding that?
I have not heard too much. There are organizers who follow the progress of the Cop City campaign a lot closer than we do. We're mostly focused on the response of the authorities to the campaign. But it definitely, from our vantage point, it seems that the authorities are intent on moving forward with the project effectively regardless of any public input, any public comment, or what their constituents think.
And speaking of that, exactly. So the police response to the Atlanta Forest Defenders. I know you were on the ground in the days leading up, I believe, to Tortuguita's assassination, where the raids were beginning on the forest. Can you speak about some of the tactics that you saw deployed against protesters relative to what the protesters were doing? I mean, you need tear gas to get out tree sitters. Is that right?
Yeah, and I mean, worse than that, honestly. Even so, Tortuguita was killed in January of this year. And starting last year in the fall, we began getting reports of a pattern of activity in which police would stage what we've been calling paramilitary raids of the forest, where they deploy officers who are dressed in full camouflage with body armor and assault weapons and helmets, moving through this forested area in teams. And if they encounter an activist who's occupying anywhere in the forest, whether it's on private or public land, they would point their guns at these people and threaten to shoot them. And these raids continued periodically, sort of at a pace of every few weeks, until finally in January, police made good on their threats and actually did shoot and kill Manuel Tortuguita Terán, which is an important part of the story, I think, because many people understand that killing as a freak occurrence. But in fact, it was just part of a pattern that kind of made inevitable that this would happen, right? The militarized approach of the police toward these protesters guaranteed that somebody was going to get killed eventually. And that approach derived directly from the rhetoric that police leadership have been using about protesters throughout this political controversy, which is calling protesters terrorists. They've been doing this publicly for a long time now. They've been urging their supporters and other community members who support Cop City to also refer to protesters as eco-terrorists, domestic extremists, etc. And there's a very predictable outcome to describing your political opponents as terrorists, right? Which is that it empowers and endorses their killing, right? When you tell the police that they're facing terrorists and domestic extremists, you are preparing the police to shoot and kill those people. And that, in fact, is what happened. And even despite the fact that that approach, that rhetoric so clearly resulted in, in murderous violence, the rhetoric has not changed. Police and prosecutors are continuing to accuse activists of being terrorists. They're continuing to deploy this language that justifies violence against them. This is incredibly irresponsible. And, I would say that the blood is on the hands of everybody who has been describing these activists as terrorists. The domestic terrorism charges against 42 people now continue to be dragged through court at a glacial pace in order to avoid presenting any evidence to actually justify these charges, but to keep the notion alive in the media that what we're dealing with here are not activists pursuing a political campaign, but rather criminal terrorists. It's a gross abuse of the justice system, and it's getting people killed.
And that's what makes the work of the Atlanta Solidarity Fund that much more consequential, because, when you're facing felony charges, domestic terrorism, people are being given unreasonably high bonds, if they're even being given a bond at all. And I know some of the work that you do involves fundraising and providing funds not only for bail, but assisting people with legal assistance. So what can folks do to assist the Atlanta Solidarity Fund? And I'm almost reluctant to ask you how much money that you guys have spent already on bond. I can imagine it's in the many thousands if you care to share. But also, please tell us about how people can support, especially if you're outside of the Atlanta area. You guys, this is one of those movements that really requires all hands on deck and for everybody to get involved in the ways big and small that they can.
Yeah, I'm glad you bring this up, because bonds have been one of the important ways that the authorities have tried to suppress this movement. They've been setting incredibly high bonds for the release of the protesters that they arrest, clearly with the intention of being able to keep them in jail. Some of the highest bonds that we've seen have been $391,000 for the freedom of one individual. And we've seen multiple bonds that are set at over $300,000. The Atlanta Solidarity Fund's commitment to social movements is that we will ensure, whenever possible, that no protester who is arrested sits in jail because they are unable to afford bond, that we will provide bail assistance to make sure that those people can get out. And obviously, at levels like this, our resources are being tested. But fortunately, there are people all throughout Atlanta, and in fact, all throughout the country, who are running fundraisers to help support us, who are setting up monthly contributions themselves. And that's so important, not just to help us continue doing our work, but to ensure that this commitment to defending the right to protest is able to sustain itself in Atlanta. It means so much to people who are thinking about making their voice heard, thinking about attending a protest, to know that there are organizations in the city who are committed to ensuring that they have the assistance they need if they are targeted by the authorities. And so we encourage everybody who also cares about that, to help support us.
And direct us to where we can send those resources, please.
So the website is atlsolidarity.org. That's atlsolidarity.org. And you can find more about what we do and how to contribute there.
And this is an ongoing fight, everybody. Please, if you're watching, hit the like button and share this, because we don't have to speculate about the rise of fascism in America, everybody. There is a fascist operation underway right now in Atlanta. The will of the people is being usurped right now. The city council is going against what the residents want and moving forward, at least attempting so, to fund this cop city that is going to destroy an old growth forest, which we need to maintain to help stymie, I suppose, some of the devastating and coming effects of climate change, and then the suppression of protesters to voice their opinion is being not only tested, it's being thrown all the way away, with folks being charged with bogus things such as domestic terrorism. So it's so important that we stay engaged with this fight. And I appreciate you, Marlon, joining us for keeping us informed about what is an ongoing process and in an ongoing battle there in Atlanta. We appreciate it.
Thank you for covering it.
Gang, we've been speaking with Marlon Counts from the Atlanta Solidarity Fund, joining us today from Georgia. Thank you so much to Marlon for making some time. And thank you all to the Status Coup community, to the Status Coup crew, as Lewis called y'all, for checking us out and tuning in. Thanks so much to the Fire Fam, my good people from my channel, Burn It Down with Kim Brown. You can go check me out every Tuesday and Friday at 7 p.m. I do a lot more cursing. So I try to straighten up a little bit when I'm on other people's platforms. But thanks again, as always, to Jordan and Colin for allowing me to come on and rock. Listen. I know you're here on Status Coup because maybe you tuned in when you discovered that, hey, there's actually somebody doing some real fucking reporting on the ground in East Palestine, in Flint, in Ohio, in West Virginia. Yeah, that's this right here, Status Coup News. And the only way that happens is if people like yourselves support the channel with memberships. If you want to join, you can go to StatusCoup.com. I'm about to tag in Colin here to help me run down all the places where you can show your support to this channel and to some of the, I have to call it exclusive reporting, Colin. Who the fuck is still out in East Palestine talking to the people? It's almost like when the national news media outlets left, it's like, oh, I guess the vinyl chloride cleared itself. So,
yeah, it follows the media when they leave, luckily, is what I've heard. We have, yeah, you were saying statuscoup.com/join is the best way to do it, where you can, for $5 a month, you can join as a member. We have a goal right now to get to 100 members in May, and we're at 63 as of a little bit ago. So thank you guys for that. And some of that reporting that you were talking about is on our Substack, statuscoup.substack.com, which is a free thing. You sign up for free and you'll get notification email both when sometimes when we go live, we'll do like an explainer of what we're about to do, but also original reporting of, I know Jordan's working on something that'll be released, but we did a lot of original reporting for East Palestine, exposing a lot of different things with EPA and stuff. So those are the two main places to go.
What did Lewis say about a Zoom call with everybody?
Oh, yes. There is also a members call on Zoom this Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So if you're a member on the website or Patreon, you'll get an email for it. If you're a member on YouTube, there'll be a community post I do for it. And so Friday, 7 p.m., become a member before then, and you'll get the email for that. Thank you for that reminder.
I said all because that's what time my show airs. But fret not, Status Coup community. This is YouTube. You can come back and watch this shit whenever the fuck. So,
well, if you missed the Zoom call, I record it and I post it for members after the fact as well. So if there's something else, you don't worry, you'll be able to hear some of Jordan's TMI stuff.
It's a full service operation over here, everybody. All content on demand. You don't even have to be present to be live, but you do have to be a member in order to access it. So go to statuscoup.com/join. Become a member. Obviously, you could become a member right here on the good U of the tubes, or on occasion the bad U of the tubes. So there is that. Thank you so much for your super chat. We appreciate that. Who was that say? Fly over Dragonfly. You know I can't half-ass read, y'all. So, so thank you so much for that. We'll come back and shout out our super chats and our new members at the end of the program. But I wanted to move along here because I'm telling you, the most problematic motherfucker possibly on Earth, and there's a lot of problematic motherfuckers on Earth. Surely Elon Musk is top 5, top 3. Actually, he's number 1. And the billionaire mogul, oh my God, I hate even the framing of Elon Musk by the mainstream media because it's so much billionaire member slurping. I don't know if we have kids watching. I don't know if this content is rated for people under 13, so let me watch what I say here, but you guys get where I'm going, right? Just because Elon Musk is a rich dickhead, somehow that equates him as being smart or a thought leader or intelligent or, you know, wise in his discernment about things pertaining to race and society and culture, which he seemingly fails at all, including business, by the way, because it's come to my attention that many youths and maybe non-youths seem to think that Elon Musk founded Tesla and they think he founded SpaceX. No. He is the son of apartheid. He is from South Africa. His people were exploiting emeralds from the continent, exploiting the labor of Africans to their own European benefit, right? This is who the fuck we're talking about. We're talking about apartheid Clyde. And apartheid Clyde never misses an opportunity to shoot off his mouth. And one of the things, he said several things actually during this recent CNBC interview. And I just want us to take a look at the clip just to give you a glimpse into the genius and into the sharp mind that is tuned as well as one of those Teslas that will lock up on you and set on fire and not let you out. Yes, Teslas are pieces of shit. They are. Anyway, I have opinions about Teslas, but regardless, I have even more opinions about its owner, Elon Musk. And just to give you an idea about how deeply unserious this man is, when asked about why he shoots off his fucking Twitter fingers every chance he gets, he gave really, as you can imagine, a terrible, terrible answer. Oh, and he's in denial about white supremacists who wear actual Nazi swastika tattoos on their chest. He's like, hey, you can't prove that person is a white supremacist. But anyway, I wanted to check out this clip from the much talked about CNBC interview with Elon Musk.
God, no, I don't want to at all. But what I'm trying, even came up though in the annual meeting. I mean, do your tweets hurt the company? Are there Tesla owners who say, I don't agree with his political position and I know it because he shares so much of it? Or are there advertisers on Twitter that Linda Yaccarino will come and say, you got to stop, man. Or, I can't get these ads because of some of the things you tweet.
I'm reminded of there's a scene in The Princess Bride. Great movie.
Great movie.
Where he confronts the person who killed his father. And he says, offer me money. Offer me power. I don't care.
So you just don't care. You want to share what you have to say.
I'll say what I want to say, and if the consequence of that is losing money, so be it.
Okay.
Help him, everybody. Help him lose money. What can we do to assist in the downfall of Elon Musk? Well, I hope you guys have amended your Twitter usage after, Twitter has become this right-wing hellscape thanks to Elon Musk, courtesy of Elon Musk. If you are in the market for an electric vehicle, don't buy a Tesla. Do not buy a Tesla. Actively campaign against Teslas. And the next time one of those SpaceX rockets blows up, maybe, just maybe, we can pray that Elon will be on it. So one of the comments there that he made, not in that particular clip, but during that interview where he spoke about the white nationalist mass shooter that killed 8 people earlier this month in Allen, Texas. His name was Mauricio Garcia. And Mauricio had white supremacist ideologies. He was wearing a white supremacist insignia. What is it? RWDS, the initials RWDS on his clothing, right-wing death squad. And he even had swastikas tattooed upon his body. I don't care that his name is Garcia. that don't mean he's not a fucking Nazi. But Elon seemed to think that surely there could not be. So at different points during this interview on CNBC, Elon actually, in fact, said that we cannot make assumptions about people being white nationalists. And he was speaking specifically about this mass shooter there in Allen, Texas. And Twitter users, the Twitter community, quickly got with Elon's ass, let me be clear, and let him know that, this information had been verified by the Texas Department of Public Safety, that this mass shooter, in fact, was a white nationalist. Like, sometimes people get confused about who can actually participate in white supremacy, y'all. It's not just white people. There's a lot of non-white people who are out here upholding and waving the banner of white supremacy. Anytime you see a non-white person that is a big patriot that considers themselves to be extremely patriotic, yes, they are an upholder of white supremacy. Ain't shit patriotic about being non-white and in fucking America. I'm sorry, not sorry. But here's an interesting thing about Elon's comments, right? And the ways in which some folks view white supremacy and white nationalism, about who is a white nationalist and who is a white supremacist. Y'all's president, Jim Crow Joe Biden, one of Joe Biden's favorite cliches, one of his favorite talking crutches, is when he talks and describes MAGA Republicans versus, quote, regular Republicans, right? And Joe Biden is the perfect example of somebody who does not mind working closely with racists. Being a racist, pushing for policies that harm communities of color and Black communities and marginalized folks, that's not a deal breaker for Joe Biden. Joe Biden is happy to work with those people. In fact, in the last hour, where Lewis was covering the work requirement potentially being floated by Republicans as it relates, to try to get the debt ceiling deal agreed to and trying to make budget cuts, etc. Joe Biden freely admitted, I voted for in favor of work requirements. Yeah, Joe Biden has voted in favor of a lot of very harmful policies that have been destructive to marginalized communities, and in particular the Black community. That's why we in particular call him Jim Crow Joe. It's not because the shit rhymes. The shit is well earned from Joe Biden. He is a white supremacist himself when it comes to the policies that he has himself supported and enacted, that his policies specifically have been harmful to communities of color, in particular Black communities. And we need to be very clear about that, everybody. The debt ceiling debate is in part an example of that, because the willingness that Democrats are willing to bend over to break their own arms, to reach across the aisle, to work with active white supremacists, white nationalists, people who want to harm trans people and the gay community and do damage to women's bodily autonomy and deny them the right to get abortion care freely in every state in this country. Democrats are cool to work with motherfuckers like that. And it's wild. It is wild for me to see. And it is important that this brand of political strategy, that this type of political calculus that I suppose that we have come to accept, tolerate, from our elected officials, let this shit die with Joe Biden. Let this shit die with Nancy Pelosi. Let this shit die with Dianne Feinstein and Jim Clyburn. If there is going to be a new crop of elected liberals or progressives, I need y'all to stop with this fucking bipartisan shit, because it doesn't work for you on the so-called left. Not us on the left. I'm talking about Democrats, right? Republicans don't give a shit about reaching across the aisle. They don't give a shit about bipartisanship. They give a shit about power. They give a shit about enacting their agenda. They don't give a fuck if the other half of the country don't like it. And it's only the Democrats that are attempting to claw back this imaginary middle, this moderate, this potential center of the political spectrum that does on occasion waffle from voting Democrat to Republican. But let those people go. Let them go. You need to empower those further to the left than the left than the Democrats, right? You need to empower those people, but they won't. Because at the end of the day, the Democrats themselves, like the Republicans, are tools of the oligarchy. They are there to ensure that working class people remain wage slaves, that working class people in this country in particular are forced to literally pay for everything to live. You have to pay out of pocket for your health care. You have to pay out of pocket for your child care. You have to pay out of pocket to buy food that you hope is not contaminated with the chemicals that have been leached out from a train derailment because fucking America would rather prioritize corporate profits over regulations that help to ensure public safety. Okay. Like all of these things are so typical of the way our political system works, and I want us to kill it with fire. I need it to die a rapid death. I need people to be held underwater until they stop moving. Okay, and I don't mean that literally. I mean that figuratively, because I know you two be a bitch out here sometimes. So let me just be clear about that. I'm not advocating violence, or at least not on this platform. I might do that on my platform, but not here. So make no mistake, right? That was not an oversight by Elon Musk ignoring the swastikas on the chest of the mass shooter there in Allen, Texas. That is an intentional obfuscation. That to Elon Musk, Nazi tattoos don't mean anything dangerous. That means freedom of speech. Oh, this person has a political ideology that they want to express on their body. Surely they have the right to do that. Sure, they do. But make no mistake about how dangerous that ideology is, and you ignore it to your own peril. We should not ignore it, and we should not let influential assholes like Elon Musk be allowed to ignore it and disregard that. And the same goes for Joe Biden and his ilk. It is time. I would love to see congressional Democrats display some of the overt petulance that the so-called MAGA Republicans display every time they get in power. Because guess what? It furthers their agenda. They actually get shit done. They actually stand as a united bloc. The Democrats could really learn a lot of lessons from watching these folks. But it is imperative upon us, those who would be Democratic voters, to understand that we need to put the press on them, to tell them, like, this is not about being friendly. This is not about building relationships. This is not about none of that. This is about building and consolidating power. And to the extent, and again, it was mentioned in the previous hour, Lewis does a wonderful job hosting, by the way. It was mentioned in the previous hour when Lewis was hosting, about the ways, and I think some of you all commented on it as well, about the ways that the Democrats have just given up on organizing and building political power in rural America. And that has been a multi-generational folly. And a lot of it is rooted not only in racism, but it's rooted in classism as well. Majority of the South, the majority of Black people in America live in the South, right? There's no reason why the Democrats haven't been able to run candidates for these local offices and build a stable of folks in the pipeline so that folks like me, Black folks who might live in these blood red areas, would be able to have some political say-so about what goes on in their lives instead of turning it over to the fucking Klan minority. God damn it, I hate Democrats. I hate them so fucking bad. I hate them so bad. And in my hatred, I have become distracted from my point. But be assured, and I've seen Joe Biden say this numerous times. I used to work with Republicans. I can't work with these MAGA Republicans. You guys know the kind of Republicans that Joe Biden used to work with. Let's see, the Mitch McConnells, the Jeff Sessions. Let's get a little even more vintage with our senatorial Klansmen, the Robert Byrds, the Strom Thurmonds. These are Joe Biden's boys, and he doesn't understand. How come Republicans just can't be more like Strom Thurmond used to be? he can work with Strom Thurmond. He can work with a Klansman. How come I can't talk to these people like the way, with the ease that I could talk to Robert Byrd? Isn't that amazing? Joe Biden is comfortable dealing with Klansmen, actual Klansmen. That's not just me saying this shit. That's history. Actual Klansmen. I can never and would never ever again vote for a party that is willing to work with people who absolutely disregard not only my humanity in the present day, but the humanity of my elders and my ancestors. I can't, them ain't the kind of allies I fucking need. Okay. I need radical whites. Okay. Come through, radical whites. If you're radical whites, put some money up in the chat. We need the radical whites to come through. Okay. And it's more important that you all shout down the Democrats and scream at them and make them, force them, capitulate, to what it is that is important to us, and that is a demilitarized police system in this country, a drastic reduction to the amount of money spent on military, a reinvestment or an investment period into American healthcare, which is abhorrent, into the mental health care services that Americans are so desperately in need of in this country. But no. Joe Biden needs to reach across the aisle on issues that he and the Republicans can agree on, like funding more police, like putting more cops on the street, like making it harder for poor people to access services, for not doing enough to assist immigrants. What's happening at the border right now is a travesty. And that is something that Joe Biden and Donald Trump coincidentally seem to see eye to eye on. Isn't it funny how that works? The Democrats are not liberal. I mean, they are liberal. I'm sorry, neoliberal. But they're not progressive, and they are not interested, and they are not going to be forced into doing more progressive things, more radical things, unless we make them do so. So hold them accountable, not only about the kind of language that they use, but the kind of company that they keep. And let them know that this bipartisan bullshit, that's over. Y'all need to move past that. The Republicans are not doing bipartisanship. They're not doing political cooperation. They are doing power accrual. They are here to acquire power, to use power, and to dominate it, to force upon more policies like nationalized abortion bans that are ultimately going to be harmful for us all. So fucking make the Democrats do better as best as we can. But I'm talking to white folks specifically. I'm talking to white folks specifically because they don't listen to black people. So anyway, guys, I'm going to make that my time here. So I want to thank all of the Status Coup community. Colin, do me a favor. Can we run back some of the super chats? Thank you all so much for your super chat support. See, look what happens when the challenge gets put out there. People actually come through and listen. It is so important that you support this channel with material support, everybody, because when I say radical whites come through, apparently I must be talking to Jordan Cheriton, because to me, the work covering this environmental injustice issue, I mean, this is an issue that affects us all. This is a class issue. This is a working class versus the elite class issue. You know, class issues are racialized as well. White folks get shit on that when it comes to environmental injustices as well. So yes, when I'm talking about radical whites, I'm talking about especially the work that gets done here on Status Coup News, because it is imperative, it is necessary. Look at the money. What's up, Colin?
All right. First up, we got Tony D, $5. Thanks to Elon, transphobia is all over Twitter. P.S. Kim looks so pretty.
Hey, thank you, Tony. We'll take your compliment and your super chat and your comment. Thank you so much for that, Tony. I appreciate it.
Fly Chomper Fly, $2. So protester with rifle, okay, but leaflets is terrorist.
Come on now. Hey, Fly Chopper Fly, isn't it funny that none of the January 6th insurrectionists, I don't think not one of them was charged with domestic terrorism. They were charged with a bunch of other shit, not domestic terrorism. But yes, flyers, dissent against Cop City. Nope. You broke a window. Nope. Domestic terrorists. I hate it here. What else we got, Colin?
Teresa with a $10 super sticker.
Thank you so much, Tressa. Is that Tressa or Teresa? Because I have a viewer named Tressa. Or Teresa. Okay, fuck it.
We always say Teresa, but yeah, I realize now it's a good question.
Tressa, give us the phonetic pronunciation of your name in the chat, dearest, so we can be shouting you out properly. Thank you so much for your super chat support. We appreciate it.
Devotion Orange, $4.99. The two political parties won't let anyone in who is not a white supremacist.
Say that! Even the black ones. Every black mayor, I'm trying to tell you, well, the majority of the black mayors themselves are white supremacists. Just look at how they champion hiring more police to patrol and enforce, black people in their cities. Yes, I'm telling you, white supremacy is rampant, everybody. There are many practitioners of white supremacy who themselves are not white. This shit's fucking crazy to see. I'm trying to tell you, it's maddening, but it's not a new phenomenon. But but we need to name them and shame them loudly. Anyway, I'm sorry, Colin. Is that for the super chats?
No, we got a couple more, and also Teresa said pronunciation with Treesa, so I assume that means Teresa.
Thank you, dear.
Aggravated Progressive, $10, says solidarity.
Thank you, Aggravated Progressive. I'm aggravated too. Thank you, Aggravated Progressive. We appreciate that support.
Olivia Chipperfield, $5.50 Canadian dollars.
Hey, I love the loonies and the toonies. Thank you so much. Bring me some Tim Hortons. Send some Tim Hortons next time.
Oh yeah. Lastly, Fly Chopper Fly again with $2. Not radical white, just anti-corrupt establishment. I'm not sure.
All to say, thank you so much. Thank you so much. But yeah, but we need more radical whites, by the way, guys. Let me just put the call out there. Y'all can radicalize yourselves in the ways in which you feel comfortable, but radicalize for justice, radicalize for freedom for all peoples. You know what I'm saying? Fuck equality. I don't want to be equal with no fucking body. I just want to be free. That's it. Gotta be free. I don't want to be equal. Oh, did somebody else run us something? Something cute?
Yes. Arlene Chambers, $20. Free State of Jones type of folks, Kim.
Yes. And thank you so much for that, Arlene. And I did watch the Free State of Jones. And let me tell you, it's not a bad story, but I would like to see some real slave rebellion stories. I mean, like not the way that they semi-fictionalized the Nat Turner Rebellion and not centering the white savior. You understand? Like, y'all, we do not even know, or let me rephrase, we are not taught the extent of the slave rebellions and the slave revolts that took place in this country. We are taught that, the black people just waited for the Union to liberate them. No, black people were murking their slave masters. They were murking their slave masters. They were murking their families. I mean, it was some serious shit, but Hollywood is likely not going to tell you those stories because they don't want black people to get no damn ideas. So thank you so much. I appreciate the sentiment. Yes, Free State of Jones kinds of white people, we need that. But when it comes to Hollywood telling those stories, don't look for those. Read the real slave revolt and slave rebellion accounts that especially black historians have discovered. So thank you all so much for your support. On your way out the door, if you have not already, give the video a like and a thumbs up. Subscribe to Status Coup News, become a member, and continue to support this independent left journalism. Damn it, we need more of it. And Jordan and them give it to you right here. And them, I guess I'm them too. Jordan and we and them and I and us and we, everybody, we give it to you right here on Status Coup. So we certainly appreciate you guys watching us tonight. We'll check you later. Oh shit. Go subscribe to my shit. Thank you, Colin. Thank you, Colin. Burn It Down with Kim Brown. I host my show live every Tuesday and Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Big up to the Fire fam. I see you guys in here. Hey, Valley girls. I appreciate y'all coming through and supporting your good sis. So support my channel. Head on over and subscribe over there. Thanks to Colin and Jordan. Big up to Lewis. Big up to Tina. Big up to everybody here on Status Coup. We'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.